Because if we believe that the earth is sacred and that humans are here to be guardians of the earth, then all of these disciplines are needed to be a full co-creative guardian on the earth. And that is my work, to help people do that. I feel now what's going on is that so many people are waking up that we're transforming not only our own karma anymore, we are transforming the ancestral, the family karma, the collective on karma of humanity.
Absolutely.
So as this is happening in your work and so many other blessed works that people are doing, we are actually giving more energy down to those people who aren't totally awake yet. Well, who is totally awake?
You got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
Hello and welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive with Karen Swain. It's always wonderful to be with you again. I have a most extraordinary woman to introduce you to today. Her name is Tanis Helliwell. Welcome to the show, Tanis.
Hello, Karen.
And, you know, I was reading your bio this morning, also one of the speakers in the High Self Expo, speaking about the science of, well, all sorts of things, but anthroposophy is one of them, the science of the nature spirits. Tanis is just... Look, I've got her bio here. It's a long bio, but I'm going to read it, the whole thing, because you've done so much. Since childhood, Tanis Helliwell has seen and heard elementals, angels, and master teachers in higher dimensions. Wanting to assist humanity with spiritual transformation, Tanis started conducting therapy practices specializing in spiritual transformation and led tours and walking pilgrimages to sacred sites across the world for over 20 years. She is a leading edge psychotherapist, well known for working to heal physical, emotional, and mental traumas and patterns, and has taught her techniques internationally to groups of psychiatrists, physicians, psychotherapists, as well as the general public. She was a faculty member of the Banff Centre for Leadership for over 20 years and numbered IBM and many medical, social services and environmental agencies amongst her clients. To develop spiritual intelligence in the mainstream, Tanis also worked for almost 30 years as a consultant to business, universities, medical organisations and governments. Whew. She has presented at conferences featuring people like Rupert Sheldrake, Matthew Fox, Barbara Marx Hubbard, Greg Braden, Fitjof Capra, which was the only one I didn't know out of this, so I looked him up and he's amazing, and Jean Houston. These conferences include the Science and Consciousness Conference in Albuquerque, the World Future Society in Washington, D.C., and Spirituality in Business conferences in Boston, Toronto, Vancouver, and Mexico. She's also presented at Findhorn, Hollyhock, which I don't know what that is, ARE, don't know what that is, Edgar Casey, Alice Bailey, and anthroposophical events. Tanis is the author of many books, including Summer with the Leprechauns, as well as Pilgrimage with the Leprechauns, Take Your Soul to Work, Manifest Your Soul's Purpose, Decoding Your Destiny, Hybrids. Is Hybrids a separate book?
Yes, it is. It's Hybrids, and the subtitle is So You Think You're Human.
Wow. Oh my God. I want to read all these books. There's more to come. The High Beings of Hawaii, Encounters with the Mystical Ancestors. And your latest book is called Good Morning, Henry, which is about conversations with the body spirit to transform the dark night of the soul into light. The body spirit is what Rudolf Steiner called the body elemental, which is fascinating. We'll talk about that and her books have been translated into 7 languages. In 2000, Tanis founded the International Institute for Transformation, IIT, which offers programs to assist individuals to become conscious creators, to work with the spiritual laws governing our world. A student and teacher of the inner mysteries living in British Columbia, Canada, Tanis is committed to helping us develop our spiritual intelligence and a divine relationship with ourselves, others, and the earth, so we can live in love, wisdom, and divine will. You can find more information about Tanis at iitransform.com and tanishelliwell.com. Boy, you've done a lot.
I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted. Did I do all that really?
I
My
know.
heaven. It must be more than one life.
I know.
I must have been writing, when I wrote that down, it must have been more lives for sure.
How did you fit all that into one life?
By doing them simultaneously.
Yeah.
I would do one tour a year at the same time as I was a management consultant, at the same time as I had my therapy practice. I'm sure you know what I'm speaking about. I'm sure that you're multitasking like crazy.
I'm a demon multitasker. Absolutely. I am. I multitask. Yeah. I've got the television going. I've got some documentary playing. I'm answering emails. I'm talking to people, setting up. Yeah, I'm multitasking all the time. Yeah, absolutely. As I work with my clients, who I call the difference makers or the New World teachers, they're all people wanting to make a difference in this world in some way. And many people have these spiritual awakenings and they just don't know what to do with it. And looking at what you've done with your life, there's just so much you can do with it. There's just so much.
Yes, that's it. And what I do, and I'm sure it's the same thing for you, is that I do what I love.
Right.
And that is really the key. It's when you have a passion about something, you sparkle.
Right.
And when you do something that you really don't want to, it's like the energy is just flat.
Absolutely.
And people are attracted to you when you're passionate, and when you're flat, no one wants to know about it anyway. So people often think, well, I'll do this job for 20 or 30 years, and then I'm going to retire, and then I'll do what I really want to do. Well, what a waste of 20 or 30 years, or your whole life.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a waste. It's just a choice, though, Tanis, isn't it? I've had a chat with my guides about the people that have come to this planet to be a part of the shift in the transformation of human consciousness. And my guide said to me, we understood how difficult the earth plane is. And, we sent millions because we understand that most of you, in fact, will get caught up in the human drama. And it'll be too hard to do your work. It's just like, you'll just get married, have kids, go to work, pay the mortgage, you'll just get caught up. And I don't think it's wrong. It's just a choice. It's just a choice. It's an experience.
Yeah, it is a choice, but I'm sure that you reach those people. And I call that the dark night of the soul.
Right.
When people are living a half life,
Yeah.
or they're only living a quarter life.
Yeah.
Like when I was a management consultant for 35 years, I would have, if anyone asked my preference, I would have said I would prefer to only do spiritual workshops.
Right.
However, what happened was I didn't have a calling card. I had no letterhead. I called no one. And all of these organizations called me to do workshops. And so that said to me, no, you're supposed to be there.
Right.
And that allowed me to, it's like looking at where the breadcrumbs lead. So that allowed me to engage in that rather than thinking I'm trapped, I'm victimized, I would rather be somewhere else. I could say, I've been called here, obviously. And the people who are going to be here in these workshops, somehow the 30% of who I am fully is going to be exactly the right amount that they need to hear right now.
Right.
Rather than thinking, I gotta lay it all out, the whole 100% shebang right now, like, oh my God. No.
Yeah, that's such a great point. That's such a great point, because many people have spiritual awakenings, think that they have to like leave their corporate world and leave their life in order to be spiritual hippies and do it differently. But I love that you were in amongst the mainstream, you know, bringing your magic and your wisdom in a very digestible way for the mainstream that they could cope with, you know. I love that you were sort of doing that. And I think that we can all do that. I was listening to a podcast, Third Eye Salon, and Linda Coulter Burge was sharing her story. And she said that she had this past life, a recall as a dream, and she had an employee who was one of these magic people who said to her one day, I want to talk to you about your reoccurring dream. And she said, what reoccurring dream? You know, that dream where you die, because in the dream she was killed. And, you know, and so there she was in this mainstream job, able to help this woman cope with something that was really she needed coping with, because she would never have gone to a psychic or at that point in her life. Now she is a psychic and a teacher, but yeah, so yeah, we need people in the mainstream, you know.
I think so. And there are a lot of undercover agents in the corporate world.
Right.
And I remember once I was applying for this job with a pulp and paper company, actually, one of Canada's largest. And I went to meet the head of HR, and I went through, well, I can do customer service, and I can do dynamics of change, and I can do blah, blah, all these corporate titles of workshops. And then just I could tell he wasn't interested at all, and I had nothing to lose. And I could say, or we could do something really experimental about taking your soul to work. And he said, now I'm interested.
I love it. Taking your soul to work. Everyone should take their soul to work. I think everyone should take their soul everywhere, actually. I think everyone should live from their soul's perspective. You know what, yeah. I'm fascinated because, you know, it says that you were seeing and hearing elementals, angels and master teachers in higher dimensions ever since you were a child. I'd love to explore a bit of that. What was happening to you as a child?
I was a closeted child, really. I didn't realize that other people did not have these abilities of being able to be telepathic or sentient or clairvoyant. It didn't occur to me. And I was about 7 years old when I was walking to school with a couple of my girlfriends, my little girlfriends. And one of them was saying one thing to me and thinking another. And I said to her, why are you saying this and thinking this? She was horrified. And then the other girl was horrified. And I realized they couldn't tell the difference. It like the penny dropped. So I went home that night and I tried it out on my parents. And to my great dismay, they couldn't tell the difference either. So at age 7, I developed my own system of ethics that I would only listen as deeply as people wanted to be heard and see people as deeply as they wanted to be seen. And I didn't tell people about this. And there were a lot of secrets in my family, Irish family, secret. And I remember that I would leave my body and I'd go out and listen to a conversation my parents were having in the living room when they thought we were asleep. And then I'd come back to my body and call out the answer. And so there was a joke in my family that I had extraordinary hearing. And I never said anything different. You see, I went with these things.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I totally relate. I totally relate to you knowing what people are thinking when they're saying the opposite thing. That was something that constantly perplexed me as a child, never thinking I was psychic in any way, that people would not say what they meant. And then I'd call them out and I'd say, how are you? And they go, oh yeah, good, everything's fine, it's great. And I'm like, no, it's not. And I get really angry because they were trying to, you know, pretend, cover it up. And you're like seeing what's really going on. And yeah, I just used to judge myself as being wrong, I suppose, because people said, no, you're wrong a lot. You're wrong. And, but I wasn't wrong. I'm still not.
No, yeah, you're still not wrong. And now, and now it's your profession.
And now it's my profession.
I know. And now it's my profession.
Exactly.
So ultimately, it all turns right. And I don't know about your parents, but I have to really say thank you to my parents because they had a hardware store, a mom and pop hardware store. And so it was a very concrete, practical life that I had where you have a product and you sell it. And so they grounded me. It was a grounding that I went through. So it wasn't a mistake, none of it. How about your family? Did you get the right parents?
Oh, look, absolutely. I got the right parents for what I wanted to experience in this lifetime. And that was very selfish, very dysfunctional people. That absolutely showed me what misery was like.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, what not following your passion was like. What anger was like you know, like my mother died at 50. She had of cancer, and I was like about 15, 16. And she really showed me what misery was like and how you can think yourself sick by holding on to hatred and resentment and not being who you wanted to be. She's since reincarnated and now she is following her passion. Like she never wanted to get married and have children. She wanted to be on stage. She wanted to be famous. She wanted to be creative. And, you know, for women in that era, she did what good, you know, respecting women do. They get married and have children and settle down. And she never wanted any of that. And then her husband leaves her for a younger model. And then she's miserable for years. And the misery just killed her at 50. You know, she was the perfect teacher, really, for someone wanting to know how this world works. And perfect teacher. I think all our parents are perfection, even when they're the most dysfunctional ones you can have. You can have brilliant, you know, teachers and kind, loving parents, or you can have the opposite, and they're all perfect for what you want to know in this lifetime, I think.
Totally. And then sometime, you know, in either early or middle age, we have to overthrow the programming, don't we?
Right, yeah. But tell me about the elementals. Were you playing with them as a child? Were you speaking to the fairies and the leprechauns, or what was happening?
Well, not only me, because a lot of children before the age of 7, there's this veil, you know, and it doesn't exist between this world and the other world. And it starts coming down when kids go to school. And so I was seeing what I called my special friend. And I would play with my special friend. And this was an elemental. And so when kids are talking about playing with their special friends, they're often talking about playing with elementals. And this whole story about Peter Pan and going to Never Never Land and what a wonderful story that is. Well, Peter Pan is an elemental, an elf, and you can only go before you hit puberty. And as soon as you hit puberty, you can't go there anymore. As soon as you start to grow up, because that's when the veils come down either at age 7, and if you escape, they'll come down at puberty. And for some reason, they didn't come down for me, these veils. And I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, I don't know if those veils came down for her either.
Oh God, I think they did for sure. For sure, I think they did. But wow, yeah, I've never thought about Peter Pan like that before. You're absolutely right, aren't you? It's the magic of childhood. I have a client whose husband's had a terrible accident, and she's got these young children, and he's okay, he's healing. But I said, how are your kids coping? And she said, the little one, who's about 2, is just in pure ecstatic joy. Dad's sick, but it's not affecting his joy, like his joy. And I'm thinking, oh, if only we could all be like that. Like, regardless of the chaos happening around us, if we can maintain that connection to that joy that these little kids have, when he comes online, he's laughing and giggling and waving, and he's just exuberant. If only we could all be like that before the veils come down.
And then after they do, we have to learn how to help people and ourselves remove them, so that by the time we get them removed, we're back to joy again.
So what did the elementals teach you as a child? Were you talking to them and having conversations with them, and the angels and the masters? You said
well, as a child, no. It was like I treated this as normal. It wasn't a special thing. It was just part of my everyday existence. And I think the difficult time for me happened when I was 8 years old, and we moved from living in the country, really a remote place, a different province, to Toronto. And my parents, not having very much money, they opened their first store, very little store, and we lived above it in this tiny apartment where my brother and I shared a bedroom without even a window. And it was on a highway. So there was no connection with nature. However, I kept up then my inner life. I still had my inner life. And I remember, do you remember when kids went to brownies and then you got to fly up to go to guides? And so I studied like crazy and did all my knots and got all my badges, and the day came that I was going to fly up. And I thought, oh, this is going to be so wonderful. Finally, I can go to Never Never Land and leave this terrible apartment back. And what happened was, trying to fly up, my mom said to me, now, Tanis, when you go tonight, don't be too disappointed, because she knew I had this idea I was going to fly, because I would stand on furniture and try to fly when they weren't around, and they'd hear me underneath in the store, right? So I went, and then I saw this lineup and the guides at the other end, and they said, now just flap your arms like this and run down to the end. And I did it, and I was a guide, and there had been no magic. So once again, I realized adults could not promise me anything. So there was this continual disappointment of not being able to get any help from adults with my spiritual journey, which led me to be very secretive and not tell people about various things, because I thought, who knows what my brother got sent to be fixed by a psychiatrist because he was doing weird things. And I thought, oh, I don't want to be fixed.
I don't want to be fixed. But that desire to fly, it's in, don't you think it's in all children? I so remember, like, why can't I fly? And I used to have flying dreams, and like, I can fly in my dreams. Why can't I fly? But I think it's a memory of who we are as spirit, and weightless and without a body. It must be a memory. And then it's so confusing that we've got these dense, heavy bodies that just don't lift off. Like, well, hello? We're not lifting off. So many kids want to fly, jump off the sea. It's such a classic thing. Yeah, and you realize that the adults weren't going to help you. And so your brother was pretty switched on as well?
He was switched on, and he used to be a sleepwalker.
Wow.
And he would be in a trance state, and they'd find him out on the street, on the highway, dead asleep.
Wow.
And I used to also be in a semi-trance state when I went to sleep sometimes, and I'd call my parents, and my mom told me she'd come. And I'd know I'd called her, and I'd know I gave her, one of the things in my room. I'd get up, and then I'd go back to bed, and she used to say to me, I can ask you anything when I come in, and you give me the most incredible answers about things. And I was only young.
So when she says when you come in, when you're asleep, like she's talking to
when
you
I'm asleep. When I'm asleep, and I'd call her to come, and I'd be standing up, and I'd give her like my dresser drawer to put back in my dresser or something. Then I'd go back to bed. She'd follow me to the bed, and then she would start asking me questions. And I knew she was doing it, but I was in my astral body, being able to still speak, and yet semi-trance state is the best way I can describe it. I was almost unconscious, but not.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's a state of being in and out of the body simultaneously. So you're out and you're connected to your soul or higher wisdom, but you're also inside your body, but you're aware that you're out and in, like you're aware that your body's asleep, but you're in it. Yeah. So there's this, I don't know what you call it, this dual. I remember I spoke to Nancy Rhines, who had a near-death, she was an atheist that had a near-death experience, and she was hit by a truck. She was on a bike. So she's being dragged under the truck, and she's experiencing being dragged under the truck and the pain of all, but she's also outside watching the whole thing. So she's having that dual thing, being outside the body and inside the body simultaneously, having that identity with both aspects of ourselves. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes, and I find that when I used to lead people in past life regressions, and also lead them to find out what their purpose it was in this life, and why they chose their mom and their dad before they entered, so that they'd be hovering above their body, and they would have these dual experiences of seeing their mother's body, seeing the there at the same time as they were making the decision to come down into it. And so these things are, there's so many words you could use. You could say that it's a medium hypnotic state. You could say that it is a spiritual state. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
okay. Well, let's get to when you knew that you were here to make a difference, to teach people. Like, how old were you when you got your marching orders from your higher self?
I was 18. And I was skiing with my brother. And I just started my first year of university, so I was living away from home. And it was a rope tow. And it was my first time skiing, and I had a scarf on, and I was being towed up by this rope, and there was nobody back in the little shack to turn off the power. And I'm going up by my neck, and way up into the air, hanging by my neck. And just as your lady who had a near-death experience, all time stopped, and I had the foresight to hold the rope with this hand so that it wouldn't wind anymore, and hold the scarf here, because I knew that the only way I was getting down was if I could get my scarf cut on the pulley. And now I'm like way up in the air.
Oh my God.
But I have no fear, none. And I saw my I saw two paths open to me. I saw if I chose to die, my parents would be absolutely devastated. I could see the whole story about how devastated, and not just devastated for like a year, but like really devastated. And then I saw this other path and I heard, you won't be able to start your real work till you're 28.
Wow.
You're going to have to put in time.
Wow. Yeah. Time as like a human, just
Yeah,
time.
yeah, as a human, going to university and traveling around the world, and I became a high school teacher for a while. I worked in factories. I did lots of things. And then when I was 28, I started teaching spiritual courses and being a psychotherapist.
I'll get to that, but how did you get out of the
Oh, well, I just kept holding it, and
uh-huh.
I thought this might hurt. But there was no fear. It was the strangest thing. And I just hit the pole, knocked unconscious, severed the scarf, and dropped me on the ground.
Wow.
And I came to, and my brother is looking at me with such horror and such love. And so I didn't say anything. I didn't say, this was before the days when you go to a chiropractor or you think you should be calling the ambulance. I just said, oh, I'm here, don't worry, because I didn't want anyone to know how close it had been. I didn't want my parents to know. I didn't want my brother to know. See, I held so many secrets through my whole childhood. Yeah, yeah. But there you go.
The cat's out of the bag, Tanis.
I know. I know.
The secret life of Tanis Helliwell is over.
I know. I'm of an age now where I think, oh boy, both my parents are dead and my brother's still here, which is lovely. But gosh, how much energy do you have to use holding secrets?
Oh, absolutely. It's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. Yeah. So you started at 28. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, let's get into some of the some of your books. Okay. I want to talk about Steiner's work too, because it's sort of tied into your latest book about the body elemental. But I want to talk about Manifest Yourself, but Decoding Your Destiny and the Hybrids. These books, the Hybrids. What's the Hybrids book about? That sounds fascinating. So you think you're human. So you think you're human, do you?
You're human. Well, the Hybrids book is one of my later ones, and it actually came 20 years after an earlier book called Summer with the Leprechauns, where I lived. When I was in my early 30s, I lived in this haunted cottage in Ireland. And at that point, I thought I was going to get awakened. That was the plan. The plan was to get awakened. And so I gave up my relationship of 15 years and gave up all my work and put my house up for sale and went to live in a haunted cottage and ended up, it was haunted by leprechauns, which I had not known. It was sight unseen how I rented this cottage. So anyway, I worked with elementals for so many years as part of my spiritual work. And just so people know, elementals are nature spirits. They're elves and fairies and gnomes and trolls, and every country in the world has them. So I did that for years, and then I realized in my psychotherapy practice that some of the people who were coming to see me had elemental heritage. They were not fully human, and that their issues stemmed from the fact that they weren't fully human. They had elemental heritage. And so I had to look at what would that entail, and then I could help them. From there, I started working with people with angelic heritage, and then there were dragon heritage, and then there was dolphin heritage. And so I started teaching workshops called Hybrids, so you think you're human. And this was such popular work in workshops that one, I remember it was in Germany that, I was doing this workshop and all these people said, we've got the name for your next book and we want you to write a book on it. That's how it happened.
Wow.
So it's about 22 different possible hybrids that we could be. And some of them are star beings.
Star
Some of
beings.
them are other Earth evolutions, and some of them are human cousins.
Right. So when you say heritage, like elemental or angelic heritage, what does that look like? Because it's not exactly like having a past life, is it? It's a part. Like, how do you explain that?
It's what is our essential essence.
Mm-hmm.
So if it was stripped right back from all of our Earth lives, for example, right? So it was going beyond past lives on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of that. I did thousands of people. So I did a lot of that, and that this is going even further to think maybe your original heritage is that you're not an Earth being. You might have been here for thousands of years, even hundreds of thousands of years, but you may not originally been an Earth being.
But that would encompass everybody. None of us are originally from here. We're all just holidaying here on planet Earth.
That's right. That's right in one way. However, where are we from? So I found out that there were, and I still work in our International Institute for Transformation. We are a bunch of hybrids, let me tell you. And I seem to attract hybrids. You'll have to be thinking about what kind of hybrid you could be. So there are beings from the center of the earth. That is one kind of hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
There are pan beings. The great god Pan. And there are people who are that kind of being. And a good example of that was Rudolf Nureyev. The great ballet dancer was a Pan being, a Pan hybrid.
Wow.
We could be a whale hybrid.
Oh, yeah.
And they have the collective unconscious of the world, not just humanity, but the world. They embody that, and that's their great gift here for us.
The collective unconscious of the world. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always say I look like a beach whale on the beach. No, I'm very connected to the whale energy. I've got a friend, David, who is absolutely whale obsessed. We always send each other whale photographs. Look. But he's a hybrid whale being, but he's also a star being as well. He's very connected to his galactic lineage. So,
and you can be both.
We're so multidimensional, really, aren't we?
Yes, but you could be both. You could be, but normally, if you're a star being, you would choose maybe one or two possible Earth evolutions to enter. So you could, like being a star being, decide, I'm going to come into whale evolution for gosh knows how long. We know that the whale and the dolphin are all connected to human evolution anyway, that we were split off before. So, and then at some point you could have said, well, now I'm going to leave the whale. I'm going to now come in to human landform evolution. So that is a possibility. I find that star beings are more common to leave another evolution than maybe elementals, for example.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I've spoken about how a star being could decide, I'm going to become a whale, and then after so many thousands of years, they decide, now I'm going to be a human on land. Instead of a human in water, and yet an elemental might have initially been an elf, comes into human evolution, is so gifted in the arts that they're happy. They're just going to stay in human evolution. They've got enough to juggle between their elf heritage and their human. That is enough. Thank you very much.
So they won't sort of take on the star lineage, you're saying?
No, no, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. Usually the star lineage comes down.
So in your experience, what does a dual soul with a elemental, look like? Someone that has the elemental lineage. So how does their life sort of unfold as a human?
Oh, well, you may think I'm one, but I'm not. I'm actually a star being, but I did spend a lot of time with elementals, so I have done that, and so I can carry that, and that's also maybe why they trust me. They trust me and get me to write these books because of that time, and so let's say somebody like an elf. We'll talk about elves. So there's two kinds of elves. There's forest elves and there's royal elves. Now, royal elves, if they come into human evolution, they are usually drop dead gorgeous, and they become movie stars. They're usually slender, and they can take on elves. Any elemental can take on many different personas. So I won't name names, but you can imagine who some of those people could be. And they have a magnetism, just a natural charm and magnetism.
Well, I'm thinking about Meryl.
Possibly.
Meryl Streep.
Yes.
She's got the knack of taking on all those different personas.
Yes. And often they are gifted in more than one. They could also be gifted in painting. They could be gifted in singing. They could be gifted in dancing. And so there are common problems, though, that sometimes elementals have. Addiction is one of the problems, for example, because when you're in the elemental world, you can change the reality with a thought. Oh, I want to be in a different place, and they travel in space and time. And I want to have on different clothes. Oh, so now I have them. So because it's an astral existence where we all can be who we want and go where we want, they can do that. And so they come here and it is dead boring. So boring.
Oh,
No.
I'm thinking of a girlfriend. I'm thinking of a girlfriend who is exactly like that, who is completely an alcoholic, and alcohol just really was her demise. She's still alive, but she's not functioning very well. But my God, was she dynamic. I've never met a more dynamic person in my life, and beautiful, and could be and do anything, sing and dance and act. And she used to do a one-woman show as Elvis. Oh my God, she was hilarious. But alcohol got her. She just, oh my God. Anyway, go on, please go on.
Well, if it's not alcohol, you could be addicted to drugs. And if it's not alcohol or drugs, you could be addicted to sex. And elementals aren't immoral, but they are amoral. So they often have trouble sticking with monogamous codes of behavior that we're supposed to have in this. So they can get themselves into some difficulties.
Right.
Because as soon as they see it, they want it.
Yes, that's her. Yeah, that was her. Oh my God, I've got stories to tell you about her. Absolutely, exactly like that. Oh my God. Yep. Wow, I would never have thought that elementals were like that. I was thinking, so there is a place here in Australia called Byron Bay, and it attracts a lot of light workers, light weavers, and it's very earth. There's so many people up there that are so connected to the earth, so many earth babies, and they're doing stuff with the earth. They're saving the earth. They're planting. They're just such earth babies. And I would have thought that they were elementals, so connected to the earth. And
They could be, but it could be
Right.
a different kind of
Different
elemental.
kind. Yeah.
Yes, like leprechauns are very much more grounded and earthy than elves. In fact, in the elemental world, leprechauns look after the money of the elves, who are renowned at not being good at looking after their own money.
Okay, so elves have money. Why do elves have money? I don't understand why they have money.
Well, elves in this life have money, and human life have money, but it often goes through their fingers.
Right.
And in the elemental world, they don't call it money, they call it gold.
Uh-huh.
But with gold, you can buy all sorts of wonderful things for your loved one. I mean, they've adopted an awful lot of human mannerisms. And they can see us, even though if we can't see them, they can see us.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've had the gorgeous Penny Kelly, who lives in upstate New York, who's a star being. But like you, she can see, she had this unbelievable Kundalini awakening in her 30s, but she had a farm in upstate New York, and the elves and the leprechauns would speak to her. The elves she could see them all, and they would talk to her and talk to her about planting and how to plant more efficiency so she could have a bit of, she grew grapes and sold them at market, how to get a bigger crop. And so she wrote a book called The Elves of Lily Hill Farm. Yeah, so
Yes, I know that book,
you know
actually.
that book? Yeah.
Yes, I do. Well, give her my love.
Yeah, she's fabulous.
Wonderful, wonderful work she's doing. Yes.
But yeah, but okay, this is fascinating, Tanis. This is fascinating. Okay, so that's what the traits of someone with high elf, did you say, would be, that sort of artistic,
Yes.
Yes, impatient,
royal elf.
royal. And what are the rest? What would someone else with different lineage like?
Well, okay. Leprechaun lineage. Can you think of someone who was a renowned comic, and other comics held this person in very high esteem and said that he was the best of them all? And he passed over from suicide not too long ago.
Oh, you're talking about Robin Williams.
I am.
So leprechaun lineage. That's interesting.
Yes. Leprechauns have the gift of the gab. They like to think that they can outtalk and outsmart any other elemental. And they love to have a little bit of a word debate with humans. My leprechaun friend, because it's a leprechaun friend I actually have, his name is Lloyd, and he's the one who wanted me to write these various books on how to work with elementals. And he loves it when I match him, when I can rise to the occasion and match him in a joke or turn something around. He loves it. Yeah, it gives him great good fun. So he doesn't like to just have people who have no sense of humor or can't do a debate or anything like that.
Yeah. So what about people that have angelic lineage? I was speaking to Robert Henry, who channels the archangels, lives in South Africa, talking to the archangels through Robert, because Robert leaves the building when the angels come through. And he said something quite poignant. He said, just like humans can, he said, split, he has this sort of accent, split their soul, split. He said the angels can split their soul and incarnate into human lives. So that the angel soul doesn't incarnate, it splits and then comes. So it was really interesting, that little bit of detail to this whole thing, because it's so fascinating.
Yes, it is.
What would the traits of an angelic lineage look like?
Well, my partner is an angel hybrid, and they hold the essence of the divine. And so the elementals are form builders. They build the beautiful form on the world, the trees and the rocks and the gardens, the all of our foods and the mountains and the waters. But the angels imbue the form with essence, with life. And so it depends on what kind of quality the angel has. So you've got like angels of healing or angels of peace or
Service.
yeah, a lot of angels that work with Archangel Michael, I have found, which is will, have come into incarnation, and
Absolutely.
yeah. So and they need it. They need it. But there's something pure about angels and their commitment to the divine. Even if they haven't led what from the outside looks like a pure life, there is a purity about them. There's a trustworthiness about them. You trust them.
Yeah.
Is that your feeling as well?
I'm thinking they're in service. Like I'm thinking of people that do jobs like nurses and teachers, and like they're constantly in service. They're in service jobs, like helping and being